Welcome to the Global South Women's Forum on Sustainable Development. This is Rachel Ong, your technical host for today's session. To maximize the bandwidth for all participants, please be reminded to turn off your videos and mute your microphones to avoid any unnecessary disturbance to other participants. If you are experiencing slow bandwidth, please close any unnecessary programs on your laptop or computer. You are welcome to use the public chat box to engage with one another. This session is being live streamed and the recording will remain public on the ERA Asia Pacific YouTube channel. We are committed to making sure that this space is inclusive and safe and will not tolerate harassment of any kind. Please note that participants are requested to be respectful and to avoid replicating societal prejudices and inequalities. Participants who engage in disruptive behavior may be removed without prior notice. And with that, we hand over to our session co-organizers.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having us here. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Alice Ridge. I'm from the International Women's Development Agency, and we're based in Australia, working with women's rights organisations in Asia and the Pacific. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I'm joining this call from, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and acknowledge that this land was never ceded and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I also want to acknowledge that our colleague Nalini Singh, the Executive Director of Fiji Women's Rights Movement, was going to be co-facilitating this session with us today. Unfortunately, Fiji is staring down Cyclone Yasa at the moment, and so Nalini has had to start making preparations to get through that cyclone, and she's not able to join us here today. So I wanted to acknowledge that Nalini's not able to join us, and really, send our thoughts to everyone in Fiji, especially the women first responders who are really on the front lines of the climate crisis. So I can see that we've got people still joining the call. What I'd encourage you to do as people are joining the call today is to have a look in the chat box where we've put a link to a Miro board, and awesome, I can see that some people have already clicked through to Miro and are starting to have a look around. That's great. So this session is going to be really interactive. We'll keep posting the link to the Miro board as people join, because you can't see the chat from before when you join the call. So please do click through. It's going to be a really interactive session, but I will also share my screen. So if you're not able to use Miro because of your bandwidth, or you're trying to use it and it's just not working, please, I'll start sharing my screen now so that you can still follow along. We will go into some breakout rooms at different points in the session. So we'll encourage in those groups, hopefully there'll be at least one person in each breakout who's able to use Miro and can also share their screen, so you can continue following along. All right, I'm going to stop talking so that I don't get confused while I share my screen. Great. All right, so just a couple more housekeeping announcements, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Joe, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the project that this workshop has come out of and contributes back into. So just quickly on other housekeeping announcements, while I'm talking and while we're getting settled in this space, you'll see in the Miro board, we've got this these post-it notes with some instructions to write your name and organisation. If you feel safe doing so, please don't feel compelled to write your name and organisation if you would prefer not to. You can instead just write 1 to 3 words that describe what Feminist Futures means to you personally. So if you double click on one of those sticky notes, you should be able to type on it. You can see that I've all written my name and organisation and climate justice as an example of what Feminist Futures means to me. So have a play around with that while I'm talking, and we'll keep using Miro throughout the session. Okay, so I also want to welcome anyone who's watching along on the live stream or who's catching up on the session later. Obviously, the session won't be quite as interactive, but you will be able to follow along on the shared screen. Just a reminder that you can find more information about this project, including you can download the full workshop methodology, a facilitator's guide to run your own Feminist Futures workshop on IWDA's website. You can see there's a link here in the Miro board, and we can pop that in the chat as well. Okay, so I think that's all of my housekeeping announcements. Just the only thing I'll say before I hand over to Jo is that we're going to move pretty quickly today. Usually this is a 3-hour workshop. We've made some adjustments to do it in 90 minutes as part of this conference. So it's really giving you a flavour of the full workshop methodology. And if you have any questions at the end or you'd like to know more, please do get in touch. I'd be really, really happy to speak to you and give you some more information about this project and talk about how you can use the methodology in your own work if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so now I'll hand over to Jo to tell us a little bit about where this project has come from and how it contributes to the work we're doing on Feminist Futures. Thanks, Jo.
Thanks, Alice, and good morning, good afternoon, depending on what time zone you might be in, to everyone. Miro is intuitive sometimes and not intuitive others, so please keep playing with Miro while I read a little bit about this project. And if you'd like to come back and revisit what I'm saying now, it's also captured on the Miro board itself, so you can come back if you want to think about the project after the fact. So this workshop is part of Imagining Feminist Futures After COVID-19, which is a project coordinated by IWDA with support from actors across the feminist movement, including FWRM, who Alice has noted by Nalini is not with us today. The methodology has been designed for feminist organizations, networks, and activists who wish to explore ways that different futures could develop, given what we know about present-day trends, power structures, and our collective desire for a better world. So really responding to the quite compelling call from Arundhati Roy about the pandemic being a portal, and trying to put some methodology around how it is we could activate the opportunity that lives inside a crisis like the global pandemic. In keeping with the Global South Women's Forum theme today, we'll be exploring the macroeconomic trends through 3 interactive exercises. The materials in the workshop were designed for a global audience. We invite you to bring your knowledge and experience to this process by considering the trends, bringing up issues that may have been missed, and contextualizing them within your own experience. After this workshop, the final Miro board will be captured as a PDF to be shared with all participants and published online alongside the outputs of other workshops to build a diverse, vibrant, and multifaceted picture of possible feminist futures. The outcomes will be attributed to the Global South Women's Forum, but participants will not be named. Participation in the workshop indicates your consent for the outcomes to be used in this way. So if anyone has any concerns about that, please pop them in a chat. You can direct them to me, Jo Pradella, in the private chat function, and we can pick that up. Finally, we invite you to come to the workshop with the principles of respect and assumed good intentions. Remember, please, to create space for everyone to have a say, including participants who are not working in their first language or those who have other access requirements. Our hope is that this methodology can support you to explore new ways of thinking and consider new possibilities for multiple possible feminist futures in our post-COVID-19 world. And with that, I will hand back to Alice to take us into our first interactive exercise.
Great, thanks, Jo. I've just added the link to the Miro board. I can see some people are still joining the session. Welcome, it's really great to have you. You'll see in the chat, there's a link to the Miro board where we'll be running all the interactive components of this workshop. So please do click through. And you can also follow along on the shared screen. So what I'm going to invite everyone to do, I can see on my screen that people are figuring out how to write their name on a Post-it note and sharing some reflections on what Feminist Futures means to you, which is fantastic. So yeah, please do feel free to keep filling those in at any time throughout the session. What I'm going to ask everyone to do now is to follow these arrows. You can select the hand symbol over here on the left-hand side of the page and drag your screen across to this space that says trends. So this is the first exercise that we're going to do. So we're going to stop talking really soon and have a chance to go into breakout rooms and have a bit of a discussion. What I'm going to do, because I can see that people haven't yet managed to scroll over, is I'm going to bring everyone to me, which is a bit rude, but it's a very efficient way to make sure that everyone can see the part of the board that we're using. So if you can, focus on this section of the board for now, but do feel free to scroll around and take a look at other sections. So this is what we're going to be doing here today. We're going to be discussing a couple of trends that have been identified by a group of feminist futurists who help us put together this methodology. We've selected 4 trends that really focus on macroeconomic issues in line with the theme of this conference. And what we're going to do in this exercise is have a chance to actually throughout the workshop to really play out some of these trends and what they might mean for our work in the future. So trends are the global forces which shape our world in complex and impactful ways, both today and into our collective futures. They provide us with spaces to consider new opportunities, surface risks, and provide a critical lens for examining our world as we aim for more preferable futures for all. So these global trends, they're not exhaustive. They may not apply in the same way in every context, and they're designed to be conversation starters. So what I'd really encourage you to do is to bring your own knowledge and your own feminist analysis and your knowledge of the context where you live and work and that reality, really bring that into the discussion. We're going to go into some breakout rooms now, which are, you'll see the breakout rooms are color coded and also numbered. So if you're in breakout room 1, you're part of the dark blue team who are going to be discussing the trend of post-COVID economics. And so on, dark green, number 2, number 3 is the pink team. And depending on numbers, we may just have three groups today. So for 15 minutes, we'd like you to share your name, your organization, if you're comfortable doing it. This won't be part of the live stream. So if you'd like to share your organization with your small group, please feel free to, where you're joining from, and how you see this trend playing out in your work. So take a moment to read the description on the card there, and then have a discussion amongst your group about how you see this trend playing out. You can capture any notes on these sticky notes over here, just double click and you can type in your notes. Okay, so Rachel, if you're able to set up the breakout rooms and invite people to join, that would be great. Hi everyone, welcome back to the main room. Thanks everyone for a great discussion. I joined group number 1 talking about post-COVID economics, and it was really great to hear about the impacts that we're seeing, you know, all the way down from the impact on women who are selling produce at the market and the impacts COVID has had on them, all the way up to, you know, countries taking on loans with austerity conditions and increasing debt as a real concern for social protections and women's rights. So that was a great discussion, and I can see the Green team has also put some notes from the discussion on the post-its as well. I'm going to share my screen again so that people can follow along on the recording or the live stream, or anyone who's not able to access Miro, you can have a look there at the discussions that the two groups have had. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give some instructions for the next exercise, and then we're going to go back into the small groups and have another discussion before we report back to the main group. So if everyone can, scroll across to this frame number 6, which is called Futures Wheel Explanation and Example. So the next activity we're going to do is to fill out a Futures Wheel focused on the trend that you've just been discussing. So Futures Wheels are a space for exploring multiple possibilities and mapping change over time. Some impacts are positive, some are negative, and there can be multiple impacts from a particular trend at each level of the Futures Wheel. So you can see in this example wheel, the trend that's being explored is backlash against women's rights, which is here in this dark circle in the middle. And what happens is you start to play out that trend over time. So in the first, few years from now, or after COVID, we might start to see these initial impacts, which each of those impacts leads to another impact and another, until by the end of the circle, we're roughly thinking about the year 2030. So you can see, to talk through some of the examples here, backlash against women's rights might lead to a renewed push for equality legislation. So a real push for countries to try and use law and legal frameworks to codify some of those rights that are being experiencing backlash against them. That renewed push for legislation might lead to a legislative stalemate, so not able to get anywhere, not able to get those laws through Parliament, which could really undermine public confidence. We might, on the other hand, see token political concessions, so really focusing on, the easy to fix issues or the most visible forms of gender inequality, rather than the underlying issues. Or in this example, the push for legislation might see new legislative blocks. So instead of people voting along party lines, you might see all the women politicians become so outraged that actually they form their own voting bloc, and that leads to a total collapse of government. Obviously, that's a really extreme example, but it shows you how the Futures Wheel can really take you through the different possible impacts. What's the best thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen based on this trend? I was thinking about how to explain this exercise as well, because I attended a session yesterday as part of this conference on intergenerational work towards the pluriverse, which was really exciting and really such a fascinating discussion about the ways that feminist change isn't linear. It's always repeating and overlapping, and sometimes we make progress and then we go back again. Sometimes we're making progress over here, but in a different part of the world, things look different. So it was really about, different futures existing at the same time, and feminist realities existing today and feminist futures existing in the future. So it's a limitation of this exercise. It is a little bit linear, but what I'd encourage you to do is to use this as a tool to try and explore the ways that the trends that you're talking about could play out. And if you want to get really creative, you can use these arrows. You can add in more arrows. You can add, circular things. You can say, maybe these things might exist at the same time. Maybe these two potential futures are total opposites and we're going one way or the other. So what we're going to do now is go back into our breakout groups, and I'm just scrolling down on my screen. So if you're following along, you'll see that there are 2 blank futures wheels here, one for each group with the trend that you're talking about in the center of the wheel. There are some instructions down the side, which are really prompts to help your discussion. And Jo and I will each join one of the groups so we can kind of help prompt you along if you need some prompting as well. Okay, so let's go back into our breakout groups. We're going to have 25 minutes for this discussion, and then we'll come back and do a report back. So you'll have a chance to hear from the other group about how their trend has played out and what they've discussed. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We had a really great discussion in our small group, and I hope the other group did as well. So I'd like to invite now, we've got about 10 minutes, or actually maybe 5 minutes. We're running a little bit behind time, so we might try and just do this quickly, just to share a few things that came out from your group discussion. So I realized right at the end of my small group discussion, we hadn't allocated someone to do a report back. So Jo, I'm not sure if your group allocated someone and you're ready to go.
We did not.
Okay, well, then would anyone from my group, group one, like to step up and just share any reflections from the discussion that we had, anything that stood out to you? Maybe you could talk through some of the future impacts that we came up with. Would anyone like to do the report back? I can do it if people really wouldn't like to, but it would be nice to hear from others, so it's not just my voice and my perspective that's being shared. Would group two like to go first? Would anyone from group two like to report back, to just share a few of the elements of the discussion that you had?
I nominate Constanza.
Oh no, I was hoping that you would go, Susanna. I'm not sure that I can fully capture the richness of the discussion that was happening.
You know who is good at this whole summarizing thing was our friend Jo. So I nominate Jo now. Jo, do it.
Sure, but please, please, everyone in group two, hop in and share your perspective as well. So we were having a conversation. I'm still processing. I was trying to capture on the board as we went. Look, maybe I can start by sort of a misstep that I took in the group by suggesting that I was opening up the framing of a dystopian future, even though, of course, what we're hoping to do is get to our positive futures. And when we were talking about support sources drying up, I was reflecting on the potential of locking in existing inequalities to access of partnerships, meaning that bilateral donors or multilateral donors are prioritizing working with those people that they already partner with in the context of a pandemic. And that's creating the conditions to lock other players out of access to funding. And Susanna really challenged that idea and opened that up into a much more transformative and utopian future, drawing on this concept of the book, The Revolution Will Not Be Funded, and thinking about the ways in which actually freeing up groups from relying on institutional sources means that Global South women's activists and movements are really no longer on their knees, pleading for funding from institutional donors, and they're able to think more creatively, act on their own priorities outside the boundaries of what somebody else is saying is the priority. So I think a lot of our conversation had that flavor. The other sort of really meaty bit that we were really delving into was at this part of the bottom right-hand part of the board around new or more groups taking up community-based fundraising as a way to access new forms of money. And again, Susanna really challenging us around breaking down the relational aspects of that and not just the sort of instrumental aspects of raising funding. So this idea of community-based fundraising as a way of strengthening the microstructure of human relationships, and that those microstructures and the strengthening of them can lead to the resistance to business as usual, which can then strengthen the ability of Global South women's movements to sort of say, F off to donors and others who are trying to dictate or say to Global South women that they know better than them about the circumstances of their life, or they know better than them about how to address those circumstances. So that's probably a good highlight of the flavor of the conversation that we took in a few different directions there. But group 2, if I've misrepresented you, please jump in.
I think there's one more bit there that since we're doing this to record some of the ideas that sort of came up, one of the things that I think I would like to challenge as well is the notion of the given when we speak about resources, because resources is a concept that's linked to the capitalist system, and it's not separate from the capitalist system. So when we're thinking about how we're going to sort of bring down the master's house, and then we are talking about bringing down the master's house using the master's tools, and that we have all sort of like innately accepted that there is a concept such as resources and human resources and natural resources, and that division between human beings and the living system as only valuable in relation to whether it's a resource or not. I think this is the time, this pandemic offers us the opportunity to imagine what it is that we have been participating this long and running about like crazy, doing. I personally think that feminists have been very busy this year. No one has been not busy. There's like a slew of webinars and conferences happening right now, several different organizations. We haven't stopped. We keep reproducing some of the same conversations. And I don't know when we will have a different conversation about what that future might look like if we delinked ourselves from the systems of power that we currently believe to be our only access to the future, that we want to attach ourselves to the power that other people have, or the power that other people have derived from the system, and that's our way forward. And I think that we should question that.
Thank you. That's a really great point. And I can see Joe still adding post-it notes and capturing some of these thoughts. So that's really great. I think it's, really great to challenge some of the assumptions that we make in doing these exercises around, where power lies and whether we have to work with the power structures that exist or whether we want to really transform them. I've had a few messages in the chat from people in my group who are balancing unpaid care as we speak. So I'm really happy to do the report back because we're all on the front lines and, working remotely, working at home. We've got other responsibilities. So it always seems to come up every one of these workshops that I run, people are balancing unpaid care at the same time. So I'll give just a little flavor of the discussion that we had, and then we can move into the next exercise. So in group 1, we were talking about post-COVID economics, and we talked about a whole range of different things. I'll maybe just touch on a few of the threads that we played out. So we talked about the shift to online working and online service delivery, and the way that it's had some good benefits, obviously, and enabling those services to keep going during COVID, where otherwise they might have had to stop. But we've also seen, a lot of resources going towards online platforms, which are, for profit, run by corporations, but increasingly becoming essential commodities in this post-COVID world. So this challenge of resources going towards those online platforms and maybe undermining the resources available for social protection and social services. And then another thread that we talked about was the potential for resource extraction and extractive industries to continue or even increase during the pandemic, and the way that that's playing out in some contexts around, loss of agricultural land, leading to more and more food insecurity and loss of livelihoods. It's exacerbating gender inequality with unequal benefits of that resource extraction going to men and women. and people of diverse genders, and then obviously the greater environmental impacts. So, you know, we played out lots of different issues, but that's just a little bit of a flavour of the discussion. I can see lots of chats coming through. Oh, great. Okay. So what we're going to do now, I will just give a quick set of instructions for the last two activities, and then we're going to go back into our breakout rooms for the last little while to focus on those last two activities. So if you'd like to scroll over, you can see I'm doing it way too fast on the share screen. It's probably jolting. We're going to go over to this next activity here, which is called Futures Wheels Discoveries. And you can see we've got a series of questions for each team to answer. And you can also see we had to prepare, we had a lot of registrations for this session, about 200. So we had to prepare for a big group, and we've actually got a small group, which is why you can see all that hidden frames on Miro. But I'm secretly really happy because I think it's really nice to have a small group. It means we all get to share and talk and really get into the activity. So we're going to go back into breakout rooms and discuss these 4 questions. So you'll have about 10 minutes to talk about these 4 questions. And it's really just a way to help pull out one thread that you really want to focus on from your discussion as a thread that might potentially lead to a more feminist future. Once we've answered those questions, we'll get a little notification to move to the last activity, which you'll see here is to write about that future scenario. So imagine it's the year 2030. This thread has played out the way we thought it would. What does it mean? What does it look like? What does the world look like now? So what are those really radical transformations that we want to see? Not just working with the power structures that exist now, but what if we could transform them completely? What might that look like? So we're going to have 15 minutes in the breakout rooms, 10 minutes to answer the futures wheel discovery questions, and then 5 minutes to write this future scenario. And then we'll just come back together for a close before we finish the session. I'm just going to attend to the chat window because I can see that I have a few messages. Yeah, so I think we'll go, yeah, we should be able to keep to time. So we won't go over the time that we have for this session, but let's head back into the breakout rooms now for another Hi everyone, welcome back. My group didn't get to the last exercise, and I don't think group 2 did either, but we were having a really great discussion about what our more feminist future might look like. So we don't want to take up too much more of your time because, as I said, people are multitasking with their unpaid care work. I'm sure, you know, everyone has a busy day after this, and someone said earlier, feminists have never been as busy as they are this year, which that absolutely resonates with me. So we don't want to keep you any longer, but I will just say thank you so much for your participation today. It's been really a really great discussion, and I've learned a lot from listening to you, and really, you know, as Jo said, it's great to be in a space where we can really challenge each other and challenge the ideas that we're putting forward and push ourselves to be more ambitious in what we're fighting for. So I really thank you for the contributions that you've all made. I do just want to let you know we're going to capture this Miro board as a PDF, and I'll share that with all of you, and it will also go up on IWDA's website. So if you do have any concerns, we won't include your names on that PDF, but if you have any concerns when you see it, please just respond to that email and let me know, and I can make sure that it's not including any information that you don't feel comfortable with. I also want to let you know that the methodology for this workshop is available to download on our website. It's usually a 3-hour workshop. We can help you make amendments if you'd like to replicate it with your own organizations or networks. We can also offer you access to the Miro board through the paid account that we have for the next 12 months. So if you're interested in that at all, please do get in touch. You can see on the Miro board on this final screen, there's a link to a feedback survey. If you'd like to offer us some feedback on the workshop today, we'd really appreciate that. And really, you know, we're always learning how to make this an even better process. So please do share your feedback if you'd like to. And there's a link to download the methodology as well for the workshop. We're getting it designed at the moment, so it's going to look even more beautiful, and I'll share that designed version with everyone when it's available. But in the meantime, it's there as a series of Word documents. So thanks again, everyone, and thank you to Iro very much for having us as part of the Global South Women's Forum. I think that's everything I have to say. So Jo, jump in if I'm missing anything, but yeah.
No, just huge thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.